We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Hayamid Beis in Meseches Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 45b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara asked, what happens if you have a situation of a Chetzio Eved Chetzio Ben Chorin, Habal Bas Yisrael? What is the halacha in terms of the Vlad, in terms of the child? And the Gemara said, well, if it would be a full Eved, we said the Vlad is kosher, so if it's going to be a half Eved, for sure the Vlad should be kosher. And the Gemara says, well, 1 second, who's the one that says that by an Eved the Vlad is kosher? Manu, who's the one that says that? Rav Yehuda, it's Rav Yehuda. V'amar Rav Yehuda, but didn't Rav Yehuda say, Chetzio Eved v'Chetzio Ben Chorin, that if you have a situation of a half Eved, half Ben Chorin, Habal Bas Yisrael, who has relations with a Bas Yisrael, with a Jewish woman, Oso Vlad Ein Lo Takana, we say that that child has no Takana, meaning to say that child is a mamzer, the exact opposite of what we just said before. And so the Gemara answers, Ki Itmar de Rav Yehuda, no, when did Rav Yehuda say that in that situation it's going to be a mamzer, it could go into Kaddish Bas Yisrael? The case is not simply that the half Eved, half Ben Chorin had relations with the Bas Yisrael, but he had Kiddushin with the Bas Yisrael. Because it comes out that the half Eved side of the man is actually committing adultery with the woman who's now an Eishes Ish. In other words, what the Gemara is saying is that when he's Mekadesh the woman, so the half of him that is a Yisrael, the Kiddushin works. And now she's a married woman. And now the half of him that is an Eved is committing adultery. And as Rashi explains, the adultery from the non-Jew should be no better than adultery from a Jew. Just like when a Jew commits adultery, so we say the child is a mamzer. Again, when a Jew is with an Eishes Ish. So over here, when the Eved side of him is with an Eishes Ish, so the child is going to be a mamzer. That's how you understand. That's what Rav Yehuda meant when he said, "Oh, so Vlad ein lo takana." But the Gemara says that's not true. V'amri Nahardoi mishmeid Rabbi Yaakov. But didn't Nahardoi say in the name of Rabbi Yaakov, L'divrei haposel posel afilu b'penuya? According to the one who says that if an Eved has relations with a Bas Yisrael, so then the child is a mamzer, that's true even if the Bas Yisrael is a penuya, even if she's unmarried. And the other way also. L'divrei hamachshir, according to the one who says that it's kosher, machshir afilu beishes ish. So even if you're talking about a woman who is actually married to a Yisrael, and an Eved comes along and has adultery, so we say that in that situation, the child actually is going to be kosher even in that situation. And both opinions are really learning this all out from the situation of a person who has relations with the wife of his father. How so? The Gemara explains. Man de Posel, the one who says that it's Posel when an Eved is Baal Bas Yisrael, Savar he holds as follows. Ma Eishes Av de lo tafsi ba Kiddushin havlad mamzer. Just like if a person has relations with the wife of his father, so in such a situation that's an arayas at the level of kares, and we say that the Kiddushin does not take effect and the child is a mamzer. So Avkol, so too in all cases, de lo tafsi ba Kiddushin, if she has relations with somebody where there's no Kiddushin, like an Eved or an Ovid Kochavim, havlad mamzer, the child's going to be a mamzer, and that's going to be in all situations, whether she was a Pnuya, whether she's a married woman. Uman de machshir savar, and the one who says that the child is kosher holds, ma eishes av, when you're talking about eishes av, de lididei lo tafsi ba kiddushin. So it's true that a person is not allowed to have kiddushin with the wife of his father, but that's only for him. But lachrini, but for other people, this woman is perfectly permissible. Tafsi ba kiddushin, the kiddushin is effective. But the Gemara says, la'afuke ovid kochavim v'eved, but that comes to exclude an ovid kochavim and an eved, de lo tafsi bu kiddushin klal, where there is no kiddushin at all, and therefore it's not comparable at all to Eishes Av, and therefore the Vlad is going to be kosher, and it's not going to matter whether the Eved and Ovid Kochavim had relations with a woman who was unmarried or whether she was married. And so in any case, the Gemara continues, Ela ki itmar de Rav Yehuda, rather, when Rav Yehuda made his statement and said that there's going to be a problem by a Chetzio Eved and a Chetzio Ben Chorin, that's got to be in the following case. Kagon Shabal Eishes Ish, the case actually is that the Eved, the Chetzio Eved, Chetzio Ben Chorin, had relations with a woman who was married to somebody else. In the original answer, the idea was that she was married to the Chetzio Eved, Chetzio Ben Chorin, so she was married to the half Ben Chorin part, and the Eved part committed adultery. But here we're saying, no, she was actually married to another Jewish man. And now this half Eved, half Ben Chorin, so like we said, the Eved side is not a problem. If the Eved side, if the Vlad is kosher when she's a Penuya, the Vlad is kosher when she's an Eishes Ish. But the Jewish side is actually the problem. The Jewish side of this Eved, the Ben Chorin side of this Eved, is now having relations with an Eishes Ish, and it was in that particular case where Rav Yehuda said that the child is a mamzer, but in other standard situations, an Eved or an Ovid Kochavim, Habal, Bas Yisrael, so again, the child is going to be kosher, and it will not matter if the Bas Yisrael is married or unmarried. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravina says, Amar li Rav Gaza said to me, Iklo Rabbi Yossi bar Avin liasrin. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, he came to our location. Ve'avovda bepnuya, and there was actually a situation with an unmarried woman. Ve'achsher, and he said it's kosher. Ovid kochavim or Eved with the pnuya was kosher. Be'eshes ish, there was another story where it happened with an eshes ish. The Eved had relations with a woman who was married. Upasul, and he said the child is pasul. In that case, he did make a distinction between a married and an unmarried woman. But the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Sheshes says, L'didi Amar li Rav Gaza. To me, Rav Gaza said that the story was a little different. Lo Rabbi Yossi bar Avin have. First of all, the story did not involve Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, El Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Zavida. Rather, the story involved Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Zavida. Have it. That's who the story involved. V'achsher bein b'pnuya bein beishes ish. And actually, he said that the child was kosher, and it didn't matter whether she was an unmarried woman or a married woman. He made no distinctions, just like we said above. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Acha b'rei derabba l'Ravina. Rav Acha b'rei derabba said to Ravina, Ikla amemar la'asrin. Amemar came to our location. V'achsher bein b'pnuya bein be'eshes ish. And also he said that it's kosher whether you're talking about a pnuya or an eshes ish. The Eved or the Ovid Kochavim has relations with this woman. The child will be kosher. V'hilchasa, and the halacha is Ovid Kochavim v'Eved habal bas Yisrael havlad kosher. That if you have a non-Jew or an Eved that has relations with a bas Yisrael, the child is kosher. Bein b'pnuya bein be'eshes ish. Whether the woman was unmarried, whether the woman was married. And the Gemara continues, Rava Achshere l'Rav Mari bar Rachel. Rava said that Rav Mari bar Rachel, that he was kosher. He was exactly the situation. He was a child of Rachel who was Jewish, but she had relations with a non-Jew. And he said that this child was kosher to marry into the Kahal. This child was not considered a mamzer. Umanye beporsei de Bavel. And he even appointed Rav Mari to be as one of the officials in Bavel. V'yavagav damar mar. Now, even though the master said, Som tasim alecha melech, it says you place for yourself a king. And we darshan kol mesimos shatam mesim, any positions that you put someone in, you put someone into an official position. Alihu ela mekerav achecha can only come from among your brothers. Even a convert, even a ger, is not allowed to be placed in such official positions. But this individual, Rav Mari, kevan de'imo mi Yisrael, since his mother was Jewish, mekerav achecha karinan be, he's called from the midst of your brothers, and he's allowed to be placed in such positions. And the Gemara continues, Avdei de Rabbi Chia Barami, Atvelo lahi ovedes kochavim l'shem intasa. So the servant of Rabbi Chia Barami, he immersed a certain non-Jewish woman, but he didn't do it in order to convert her, but she actually immersed to purify herself from when she was a nida. And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef says, Yachilna lachshure ba uvevrata. I can make it that she's kosher and that her daughter is kosher. Even though she didn't have in mind to convert to Judaism, it's going to be a kosher conversion. And her daughter will be kosher as well, even though she's having relations with an Eved, with somebody who's not Jewish. So Ba Kid Ravasi, she's kosher like Ravasi says. The Amar Ravasi, because Ravasi said, Milo Tavla Linidusa, didn't she immerse for Nida? In other words, Nida is not an idea that the non-Jews hold of. That's a Jewish concept. It's a halacha concept. So if she's immersing for Nida, automatically it's like she's immersing to convert to Judaism. And Bivrata also, her daughter's also fine, because if she's Jewish, so Ovid Kochav and V'Eved, when you have a case of a non-Jew and an Eved, Habal Bas Yisrael, who has relations with a Bas Yisrael, and again she's Jewish, Havlad kosher, so the child is considered kosher. Now the Gemara brings the actual story where Ravasi made his statement about a woman who immerses for Nida. So the Gemara says, Hahu dahavakari le barar miyasa. There was a story of a person who was called the son of an Aramean woman, meaning people said about him that his mother was not Jewish. Amar Ravasi, and Ravasi said about that story, about that individual, Milo tavla linidosa, didn't she immerse for Nida? Didn't she immerse to purify herself from the Tumas Nida? And therefore that will count as a proper conversion, and he's not the son of a non-Jewish woman, he's the son of a Jewish woman. Gemara brings a similar story, Hahu dahavakaru le barar ma. There was a story of an individual, they called him the son of an Aramean. They said his father was not Jewish. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said, Milo tava lakirio. Didn't he immerse because of a seminal emission to purify himself? That will also count as a kosher conversion. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Chama bar Gurya, Amar Rav. Rav Chama bar Gurya says in the name of Rav, Halokeach Eved mina Ovid Kochavim, if somebody purchases an Eved from a non-Jew, V'kadam v'tava l'shem ben chorn, but then this Eved goes ahead and he quickly immerses himself to be a free man, to convert. So kana atzmo ben chorn, he actually acquires himself as a free person. In other words, he does this immersion before the master immerses him for the purposes of him being an Eved, and that's going to be effective. He'll be a ben chorin. And the Gemara says, my time, what's the reason? And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph.